Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Parliament, Mr. Vice President, Madam Secretary of State, the European Commission takes note of the vote of the House of Commons last night. As said by our first Vice President, Frans Timmermans, the House of Commons voted yesterday with a crystal clear majority against the withdrawal agreement, which the European Council agreed with the British government in November and which you welcomed as the European Parliament. Right now, it's too early to assess all the consequences of this vote. We have always respected and we continue to respect the democratic parliamentary debate in the UK, and I will not speculate on the different scenarios. What yesterday's vote showed is that the political conditions for the ratification of the withdrawal agreement are not yet there in London. We regret profoundly this vote, as President Juncker has said, and this regret, ladies and gentlemen, is obviously also linked to the intense work we have done together with you, with your Brexit steering group, for 2 years, but also with the British government, based on the red lines of the British government and based on the realities of leaving the EU.
We profoundly regret this vote because we built this withdrawal agreement together with the British government on an objective basis, taking into account our shared demands to ensure that we don't have a border with Ireland and allowing the UK to preserve the integrity of its territory. And together with the British government, we mapped out the framework for the future relationship, which we would like to be as close and ambitious as possible, and as the British red lines will allow. Ladies and gentlemen, listening to the public statements made by the members of the Chamber of Commons, of the House of Commons, we regret to say, made us sad. They were, of course, due to various motivations, sometimes quite contradictory or opposing views. Objectively speaking, this vote is not a clear manifestation of a positive majority, which would define an alternative project, an alternative to the proposal on the table today. So in this context, as Mr. Timmermans said, it's up to the British authorities today or tomorrow to assess the outcome of this vote, and up to the British government to indicate how we are to take things forward on the 29th of March towards an orderly withdrawal. As the President of the European Council, Mr. Tusk, reminded us last night. Ladies and gentlemen, contrary to what has been said over the last few days or weeks, the agreement that we reached with the British government, it's almost 600 pages long, is a good agreement, actually. It is the result, of course, of a compromise, but it's the best possible compromise. And again, we worked in an objective manner. This brings legal certainty everywhere where Brexit has actually created uncertainties. So, as is the case in all separations, certainty for the citizens, for the UK citizens, for the European citizens of the other 27 member states of the EU. Their rights are now guaranteed sustainably. These rights have always been our priority, your priority here in the European Parliament. And protecting these rights will continue to be our priority, whatever the outcome. Now, public or private bodies, whether we're talking about the UK or authorities in the various 27 member states, all the undergoing programs will be maintained thanks to the agreement that we have reached. Security and stability for Ireland and Northern Ireland return of a hard border would be avoided thanks to a solution which would preserve the integrity of the United Kingdom on the one hand and the single market on the other, respecting with the respect of the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, which we committed ourselves to respecting. And this is why the backstop, ladies and gentlemen, which we agreed to with the UK, must remain a backstop. It must remain a credible backstop. The backstop must be a backstop. It must be credible. Security for administrations and businesses who would be given a transitional period. The only legal basis, I might remind you, is the withdrawal agreement, under which they would have time to prepare and adapt to the new situation. So this compromise also, of course, gives us, with the transition, time to negotiate our future relationship on the basis of a political declaration, which we have also ratified with the with the UK government. And this political declaration allows various possible options, but still respecting our fundamental principles. But in any case, whatever happens, ratification of this withdrawal agreement is necessary. It is a precondition to create mutual trust amongst ourselves in looking forward to the second round of negotiations, which will start as soon as possible on our future relationship. Now, with regard to this future relationship, which of course is the most important thing for the future of our continent, I would like to remind you that your Parliament and unanimously the European Council have always said that if the United Kingdom chooses to shift its red lines in the future, and if it makes that choice, and it makes a choice to be more ambitious, to go beyond a simple free trade agreement, which would be quite something, then the European Union will be immediately ready to go hand in hand with that development and to give a favourable response. So with regard to the future relationship, President, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not only talking about economics and trade and exchanges that are so important for growth and jobs. I'm talking about sectoral cooperation, and your committees, of course, are very, very following all these developments very closely. Research, for example, fisheries, very important sector, aviation and transport, and many, many other sectors as well. I'm talking about police and judicial cooperation, which will be necessary, of course, after Brexit. And I'm also, of course, talking about stability on our continent, security. The United Kingdom, a large company, a member of the Security Council of the United Nations. An ally and a friend will always be a partner in foreign policy, in development and cooperation, and in any matters pertaining to defence. Ladies and gentlemen, we've worked collectively over the last 18 months, and this was validated at all key moments by the British government, by the European Council, by yourselves here in this European Parliament. Now with this standstill, and until we have found a way forward which will receive a full majority or a better majority, we won't be able to move forward. So this is why the future steps must be indicated very clearly, as you have said, by the British government. President, ladies and gentlemen, an orderly withdrawal will remain our absolute priority in the coming weeks. Having said that, as I speak to you, we cannot exclude any scenario, and this is particularly true of the scenario we always wanted to avoid, and that was the no-deal scenario. It's the 16th of January today. We're only 10 weeks away from the end of the month of March. That is to say, the moment chosen by the British government for it to become a third country. And 10 weeks from that date, we are fearing more than ever that there is a risk of a no deal, and we still are focused on avoiding that scenario. But at the same time, we must remain lucid and clear in our approach, which is why we are stepping up our efforts to be prepared for that possibility. This work in the services of the Commission and the Secretariat General have begun months back with the Member States and with yourselves in the Parliament, and we will have to speed up our efforts, working together with all the stakeholders and partners who will be called on to take contingency measures to face possible consequences of that outcome. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your trust in me and us. Our conviction, I would repeat, as Mr. Timmermans has reminded us, is that the compromise that we reached after 18 months with the British government remains today the best possible compromise. It is the fruit of constructive work throughout the negotiations on both sides. It is the result of a constructive attitude which will be ours, will be mine to the very end. We must remain calm, we must be united, we must continue dialogue, and we must be transparent. It is up to the UK government now to explain how the UK will take things forward to organise the orderly withdrawal that it asked for itself, and beyond that orderly withdrawal, how it will work with us on building up an ambitious and sustainable partnership. Thank you.